you. Okay, a quid pro quo. Go ahead, Captain. What's your message? What's your message for the people out there?
You talked about, I was listening, to the monologue, the entry, and you're right. There are a lot of people that are hurting out there.
Yeah.
There's definitely a genuine suffering when it comes to people being able to civilly communicate anymore. I mean, it just doesn't hardly exist. And I've noticed that each cycle it changes, And I was out yesterday and I cut grass yesterday um and I was thinking as I was going around with this push mower, I was like, when was the last time that we had a president in office that we didn't have so much turmoil? And it was H.W. Bush. Now we had some turmoil. Every presidency's had some turmoil all the way back to FDR and beyond. I mean, they assassinated Abraham Lincoln. But I'm talking about where the entire country seemed to be divided. And I don't think divided is a fair term. I think that it's more that the country is really starting to lean back to its roots now. So when you see the people that are really, out there saying these really horrific things, I mean, talking about killing people because of a difference of opinion. And I bet a lot of those people are sitting in church or they were in sunrise service or something, or maybe not. Maybe that's part of their problem. But I bet you that they're hypocritical because they're talking about love and they're talking about patience and they're talking about all these things. But yet you can't go a single day without defaming our president, wishing our president whatever, all sorts of ill on him and even his family that have nothing to do with it, his children, his grandchildren. Unbelievable things that I have heard and seen out of a group of people that supposedly advocate for peace. All right. On this Easter Sunday, I can tell you my memories about Easter go back to 2004, and we'll get into that. Because April 11th of 2004 was Easter Sunday, the attack on Baghdad International Airport. And you want to talk about the feeling of hopelessness. I had, went through my second divorce. I'm writing a book about this, and as painful as it is, you have to look at yourself and you have to say, this is my self-evaluation. So I did a self-evaluation, and I do this on me. What can I do better? How can I be a better person? And that self-evaluation told me, said, well, you need to, eat healthier, exercise more often. You need to get out and get some sunshine. But most importantly, you have to make room in your heart for peace. You have to make room in your heart for forgiveness. And a lot of people carry a lot of hatred in their heart. I talked to a gentleman about this just a few days ago. I said, you forgive for you. You don't just forgive for the other person, because it's your peace that is all out of whack. It's like these people that are waking up and they're going to protest Tesla dealerships. They're going to make a post on Easter Sunday, the most holy of days for Christians. They're going to make some sort of a defamatory post laced with horrific language. They're going to wake up every day. I mean, I've seen some of these really crazy things. And you know what? The right was guilty of that as well after the last election, because I saw some of their actions as well. So it's like, I'm not just coming in here throwing stones at one side. Greg, you've got your referee jersey on, and it's like, that's what we need. And the greatest referee that we've got, an advocate that you've got, that gave it all up on the cross,
right.
that lived, died, took all the sin of the world on his shoulders. Okay. And then on the cross, as he's dying, he says, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Buried and rose again and walked among the people, saw by thousands of people. And it's amazing to me how some people will say, well, how do you know that's true? Well, all you got to do is that today the people, if they see it on Facebook, it's the gospel to them. They think that's the gospel. But over 5,000 people saw Jesus Christ after his resurrection. 500 plus on the first 2 days. Okay. Thomas, who said, I don't believe that it's him. He says, take your hand and put it in the wound in my side where the Roman centurion thrust the spear in the side of Jesus, and the hole was there. All of these things were seen, touched, felt. But in this day and age, it's, well, I didn't personally see it. You see, you talked about hope and faith. You have hope. You hope that it's true, but faith, you're right. See, hope is the start. I got even on my coffee cup today. Hope. You got to have hope, because hope will allow you to seek and work on your faith. You see, because when Thomas had hoped, because if he didn't hope, he wouldn't have been in the room, and he wouldn't have stuck his hand, even have moved his hand in the direction of Jesus. But when that hand touched that wound in the side of Jesus Christ, that hope went to pure faith. But it took a level of faith for him to make it that far in the first place. But that faith was solidified so much that all of the apostles, minus one, went about and around to all that they could travel to spread the gospel, and were murdered or martyred, except for one, which was John, who ironically was the youngest and who was also the only one at the foot of the cross with Jesus' mother, Mary, and the other Mary, Mary Magdalene. So, understanding that even as a young boy, and understanding that even up to that point in 2004, my faith was always there, but my hope was gone. I had no hope of getting out of that place alive. In Iraq, I was listening to the screams of a convoy that I could see just outside the gate of Biop, and the smoke was rising. And I watched an Apache helicopter go out and get shot down. My Easter Sunday is always going to be marked with that. But let me tell you, regardless of what occurred, all of the things that happened, you've read some of it, you know it, it's everywhere. That day solidified my faith and put me at a point to where it didn't make me weak. A lot of people say, well, I really don't want to go to church because it makes me look weak. It makes me look like, I'm not manly or whatever. Well, you're wrong. Because if you read the rest of the story about that day, you'll see that there were incredible things done. I had to perform things. My soldiers performed things that seemed so horrific. But you had a group of people who absolutely wanted to kill not just American soldiers, but to kill Americans on the most holy day of our year. People say it's Christmas, the birth of Jesus Christ. I'm telling you, that's a beautiful day, but it's the death, burial, and the resurrection day that truly is the day that Christians look at as this is the day. We had hope when Christ was born, but he was in his 30s before his ministry started. And then he was killed. And then he was buried in a tomb. And then he rose again. The resurrection, the message, supported by all of the miracles, but ultimately further supported and solidified and took the hope from hope to faith, occurred on Easter, on the day of resurrection, the day that we're celebrating today. And you have a group of radical, hate-filled people that wanted to not just kill Americans, but they wanted to destroy families. So in my heart, deep in my heart, I knew that. I knew that because I had a grandmother that prayed for me. I had family that taught me about how important that day was. So for me, watching two Apache pilots perish on Easter Sunday, I'm reminded of everybody that died on April 11th, 2004, died on Easter Sunday. And it has profoundly affected their families for generations to come. You see, my uncle was killed in Korea in 1953. I never knew him. I wasn't even born. But as a young boy growing up, that was always brought up. In June, on the day that he was killed, up into the early 80s, they talked about it. I'm talking about it right now. And if you go look up Charles McCormick, you'll see he was killed. He was in the 5th Regimental Combat Team, and he was killed weeks before the ceasefire that would have ended the Korean War. But imagine had he been killed on Easter Sunday, because it changes, the dates change. People say, well, it's not always December 25th. It could be April 11th, it could be like today. But it's still that day that's designated. And so everybody that was behind me and around me, if they died that day, their children, if they had children, their mothers, their fathers, their families, their siblings, may have lost their faith. So it was much more important than just protecting a perimeter or fighting through 4 ambushes following that day. That day was nonstop action. And miracles occurred all around me. And I'm telling you, I went through a divorce, my second divorce. I didn't think much. I didn't pray as much as I should. I went through an ambush that Thursday before going into that camp. Nearly got killed that day. And I started to pray. And I started to pray. It didn't change my actions. And in some cases, I always had, a problem with tempers and things like that. But after Easter Sunday, when the last convoy was in, and it was getting dark, and we came into the green zone, and me and my soldiers parked underneath the cross sabers that Saddam Hussein and his troops used to march under. And as I looked up as the sky fell, I really felt the most emotions I have felt in my entire life. And I truly believe that it was that night, when I made the ultimate decision to serve our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, but more importantly, to sincerely pray and have a conversation. And in that conversation, You hear the voice in your head. It says, after everything that occurred today, bullets went through the creases of your trousers and never touched you. Bullets impacted the front windshield right in front of my driver and never touched him. The sound of gunfire that roared and the bullets that were zipping past I think every man in Iraq with a rifle was shooting at me. That's what it felt like. But God was there, like with his hands in front of me, like this. And the bullets passed. They impacted everywhere. There's videos of it. Young man by the name of Specialist Matthew Rourke to this day has vivid memories of him standing up to shoot the video because the fire was so thick in that camp that had he ventured forward any further, he almost got shot where he was at. He would have probably been killed and the video would have never been shot. And people would have said, oh, well, it was just another attack. But another group shot a video of us near the wall, and right where I'm standing at, I watched my driver in the video when a bullet hit the wall, and a piece of that bullet, we're thinking it's a piece, possibly the whole bullet, went through his cheek, one side, out the other side. And he went down to his knee, shook his head, and he got back up and kept fighting. God was with us and empowered us that day.